All right, you're welcome back. At the top of the show, I did remind you that tomorrow marks 2 years of this presidency. May 29th, 2017 will be the second anniversary of the President Muhammadu Buhari administration. And we just want to do a quick scorecard to see how well things have gone in the last 2 years, especially with regards to all of the promises. There were quite a lot of them that were made in 2015 in the run-up to the elections. And I have here with me Dayo Israel, member of the APC. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much.
And of course, Deji Adeyanju, former social media director of PDP. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Buka.
Okay. It's very interesting to see you here after yesterday and all the drama that happened with the primaries. But
I'm so emotional.
Let me start with you, Deji. Now, there were a lot of promises made in 2015 with regards to corruption, employment, security. And a lot of people have said, okay, I mean, he's done well on some fronts, at least with regards to security, for example. The Northeast is a lot calmer than he met it. The Niger Delta has also sort of simmered down a bit, even if people say it was the acting president who did that, but it's the same administration. But on the whole, how would you score Mr. President? Let's do a general overview first.
Well, Ebuka, tomorrow, the Buhari administration and government clocks 2 years. President Buhari will most likely not be available to read a speech because he's in a hospital or on a hospital bed in London. And President Buhari is not in a hospital in Nigeria, he's in London. So I think that should sum up the whole 2-year analysis, of failure of the government. Like you rightly said, I wouldn't say the government has completely failed, because every government has, whether it's its own modest achievement, no matter how minute it may seem. But this particular government has really done very badly, and I must say, and, if you look at things critically, you look at specific promises that the president, and his party promised the country, you discover that, let's take, for instance, the issue of corruption. From day one, they've been singing the song that, they've signed some treaties, some MOUs, they were going to repatriate some people who stole money back to the country. I am aware that Nigeria has such treaties with most of the countries where alleged treasury looters are. But how hard can it be that a government will find it so impossible to repatriate its own citizens who are alleged to have committed a crime here in 2 years, and it says it's fighting corruption? Let's take the case of former Minister of Petroleum, for instance, for example. She's in London. Her position and her whereabouts is known to this government.
But she's there on health grounds, isn't she?
But why can't she be repatriated and so that she can come and attend to her health? Because it has been alleged that she committed crimes here. And the anti-corruption war, it's a war where somebody returns money and is enjoying his life. Is that how to fight corruption?
Dayo, you have to agree with him there to an extent, because a lot of people have said, the three main things he campaigned on were the economy, security, and corruption. And he talked about corruption a lot. In fact, that was the main reason why a lot of people voted for President Buhari, because he had this image of being against corruption and all of that. There seems to be a lot of showmanship and pizzazz with regards to we flash pictures, we've collected this money. Prosecutions, nothing seems to be happening.
I think government is dynamic. There's a lot of dynamics to government, and governance is very dynamic. And even though you're the president of a nation, you don't have absolute powers. The processes, the systems of checks and balances. So Donald Trump wanted to issue an executive order to bar people from 7 nations to come into America. It was his number one vision, number one goal. That's what his aspiration. That's what he wanted to do. And he signed the executive orders, but a judge came from nowhere, a remote city who has never been heard about, and said, that's not going to happen. Why? Because it's a system called checks and balances. So it's okay for the president, who is the head of the executive arm of government, to identify to identify offenses in government, to identify issues of corruption, and hand them over to the judiciary for action on them. You cannot blame the government systems that have been put in place, like the EFCC or the ICPC, for not doing their job. They've done their job effectively. but it is now the onus is on the judiciary, which is an arm of government, not under the direct control of the Buhari administration, to be able to complete the process. There is one thing for the FCC to file a motion ex parte or to go to take someone to court and then the Chief Justice is not available or they're moving another motion, or corruption is fighting back. Because people who have stolen our nation's wealth, who have stolen our commonwealth, have come to be able to use the best lawyers. They have enough money to hire the best lawyers who can actually fight back anti-corruption. And that's one thing that has been stopping or injuring the effort of this administration to be able to rid Nigeria of corruption. But above all, I would say that the president and his administration, led currently by the acting president, have the best interests of this nation at heart. They have a good vision for Nigeria. They want to be able to build the Nigeria that they can hand over to their children and their grandchildren. These are people who are in their old age. They're not looking for money, Demola, Deji. They're looking for opportunity to leave a legacy, to be able to help to build Nigeria. Which administration before now have a president being away on and will hand over to the acting president?
But now, going to that point now, isn't it also a valid point like he raised earlier? I mean, we are 2 years into government. We'll have 2 more years to go. He's probably ruled for a year and a half, pretty much. What does that say about the fact that, I mean, should we still be talking about this? He also campaigned a lot about, the party in government at the time, traveling to the US to educate their children, to keep them in hospitals there. But these are all things that he's doing now.
No, there are 2 things to it. Number one is the fact that it's 2 years into the government. Effort has been made. You're not going to see the report in one day. I'll give you an example. Look at Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. It was in a very sore state before this administration came on board. They have assigned the contracts to different companies. I remember Babalakin took a part of it at the time. And, for many years, they kept on saying they were going to do the road, they were going to do the road, they were going to do the road. Finally, if you go on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway now, the road is almost into Lagos. Now, that's an example, but it's not completed. Hopefully, before the end of the administration's 2 years, that project in particular will be completed. So Rome was not built in a day. Because the president understands that they want to build a better healthcare system in Nigeria, does not mean that we are there yet. But in the interim, he probably realized that some of the things that we need and require.
The fact remains that he campaigned on those things in 2015.
And he's doing his best.
But he brought up infrastructure now, and I wanted to come in there.